Okay, so we continue talking about how economists are used as policy advisors and how that they work with so many different federal, state, and local agencies, but mainly a lot of them are used to make predictions on outcomes and to review past history. Many different federal offices use economists or have their own economists on staff. The Office of Management and Budget, the Department of the Treasury, the Department of Labor, the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO that most of you have probably heard about, and the Federal Reserve. We have the Federal Reserve here at Liberty Park that was here booming business at one time, but now has pulled some out. But still, you can see the impact that the economists can have in the federal, state, and local governments. The research and writing of economists can indirect and directly affect public policy. Quite often, economists do not agree. Sometimes you can watch a television station one day and see an economist saying one thing, making an estimation or a prediction off of numbers, and then later on that same afternoon, the same television station or news outlet will have another economist on there saying something completely different. Some economists feel, for example, that a change in the tax code would eliminate a tax on income and create a tax on consumption, which would increase savings in this country. However, other economists feel that a change in the tax system would have a little effect on the savings and behavior and therefore not support a change. So you can almost find someone to agree or disagree on every side of the issue, and it's how they look at the numbers. And so what our attempt in this class is so that when you are listening to it or you're reading about it, that you will know at least what they're talking about and how to research those numbers. A lot of the times when you're talking about different economists speaking differently or having different ideas on different subjects, a lot of it is due to their values. You know, where are their values? Are they conservative or are they not? A lot of the times it is dependent on that individual. Perception versus reality. One person's perception is their perception. So if they feel that it will help or that it's a good advice for public policy to make a change, then their perception is their reality. The one thing that you can most of the time to get economists to agree on is barriers to trade. Most economists agree that trade is the key to moving the GDP and the key to moving the economy in a positive direction. Economists are often concerned when outlying variables that are unpredictable are out there. Economists do not like the unknown. And a lot of times that's where you'll see they'll put a caveat on the end of most everything they say, pending further investigation or probably we'll see type attitude. So before we wrap this up, let's talk a little bit about the graphs that we'll be looking at in the chapters going forward and the ordered paired of numbers and how we will graph on a two-dimensional grid. The first number in the ordered pair is always the coordinate, the x, and tells us the horizontal location of the point. The second number in the ordered pair is the y coordinate and tells us the vertical location of the point. The point with both the x coordinate and the y coordinate, of course, is called the zero of origin. Two variables that increase or decrease together have a positive correlation with each other. Two variables that move in the opposite direction have a negative correlation. Curves. All right, picking up with our curves. So as you see, the positive correlation and the negative correlation will make changes, and you will see the price points and the supply and the demand moving within our graphs. This will create what we call curves. Curves coordinate the system. Often economists want to show how one variable affects another, holding all variables constant. An example of this is our demand curve. The demand curve shows how the quantity of a good a consumer wants to purchase varies as the price varies. Holding everything constant, of course. If income changes, meaning there's more money to put into the market, this will alter the amount of the good that the consumer wants to purchase at any given price. Thus, the relationship between the price and the quantity desired has changed and must be represented in a new demand curve. A simple way to tell if it's necessary to shift the demand curve is to look at the axis. When a variable that is not named on either axis changes, the curve shifts, creating what we call a slope. We may want to ask how strongly a consumer reacts to a price of a product if something changes. Will he stop buying it? Will it get too high? If the demand curve is very steep, then the quantity desired does not change, but the price of it may change. So you may have a result in the change price. If the demand curve is very flat, the quantity desired changes a great deal when the price changes. The slope of the line is the ratio of the vertical distance covered. The slope can be seen when you take the changes in y and divide it by the changes in x. A small slope in an absolute value means that the demand curve is relatively flat, where a large slope in an absolute value means the demand curve is relatively steep. Economics often makes statements suggesting that the change in variable A causes the change in variable B. That's pretty much all we've talked about throughout these first couple of lectures. This is not always possible and could lead to problems omitted by other variables. As you'll see, many variables can make many changes, and as we go along in the following chapters, we'll add in those different variables and we'll see what it does to our demand and supply curves. Remember to finish reading the chapter, look through your PowerPoints. That will be on your test.